Lily has always loved nature. At the age of 17, she dreamed of becoming an entomologist and studying insects. Every weekend, Lily would go to the forest with her net and collection box, hoping to find rare species of butterflies. One sunny Saturday morning, Lily spotted an unusual butterfly. Its wings shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow, and the pattern seemed almost hypnotic. Lily had never seen this species before. This could be a new discovery, she thought as she cautiously approached the butterfly. But as soon as she swung the net, the butterfly took off and flew deeper into the forest. Lily ran after it without hesitation. She ran for a long time, making her way through the dense undergrowth. The sun had already begun to set, but Lily did not pay attention to it, focused on her goal. Finally, the butterfly landed on a large old willow tree in the middle of a small clearing. Lily crept up quietly, preparing for the final throw. "Gotcha!" she exclaimed, covering the butterfly with her net. But at that moment, something incredible happened. The butterfly began to grow, tearing through the net. Its wings became bigger and bigger, and its body transformed, taking on monstrous shapes. Lily watched in horror as the beautiful butterfly turned into a huge monster. Its eyes were glowing with an ominous red light, and sharp fangs were sticking out of its mouth. "What? What are you?" Lily whispered, stepping back. The monster spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "I am Morpho, the ancient spirit of the forest. You have been chasing me, trying to catch me. Now it's time for payback." Lily turned and ran as fast as she could. She heard Morpho flying after her, felt the gust of wind from his huge wings. Suddenly she tripped over a root and fell. Turning around, Lily saw Morpho hovering over her, ready to attack. She closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable. "Lily, Lily, wake up!" Lily jerked her eyes open. She was lying in her bed, and her mother was standing over her, worried. "You were screaming in your sleep, honey," her mother said, stroking her head. "It must have been a bad dream." Lily sat up on the bed, still shaking from the horror she had experienced. "It was so real," she whispered. "It's okay, it's just a dream," her mother reassured her. "Get up, breakfast is ready. And don't forget that today you're going on a field trip to the Natural History Museum." Lily nodded, gradually calming down. She got up and went to the window. There was a collector's box with butterflies on the windowsill. Lily smiled as she looked at her collection. Suddenly she froze. In the corner of the box was a small butterfly with rainbow wings, just like the one in her dream. Lily blinked, and the butterfly disappeared. "I must have just imagined it," she thought, but an inner voice whispered that maybe not everything in her dream was just a fantasy. Since that day, Lily has continued her entomological research, but has become more careful and attentive. She learned to respect nature and its secrets, realizing that not all riddles are worth solving, and not all butterflies need to be caught. Eric Foster, a 16-year-old teenager from the small town of Ravenwood, loved to spend his evenings playing soccer in an abandoned field near an old cemetery. The locals considered the place spooky, but it didn't bother Eric. One foggy evening, when the full moon was barely breaking through the clouds, Eric went to the field as usual. The wind rustled in the treetops, creating an ominous atmosphere. "Stupid superstitions," Eric muttered as he kicked the ball. Suddenly, the ball flew into the bushes near the cemetery fence. Eric reluctantly walked over, feeling the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Pushing the branches apart, he froze. Something moved in the darkness. A black, slimy mass crawled out from under the tombstone, growing larger before his eyes. Eric screamed and tried to run away, but slipped on the wet grass. The slime moved incredibly fast, enveloping his legs. "No! Help!" Eric shouted, but his voice was drowned in the howling wind. The black mass was engulfing him, seeping through his clothes and penetrating his skin. Eric felt excruciating pain, as if thousands of needles were stabbing his body. He tried to struggle, but the slime was relentless. It filled his mouth and nose, making it impossible to breathe. Eric's eyes widened in horror as he realized that these were his last moments. The slime penetrated deeper, dissolving his internal organs. Eric could feel his body disintegrating from the inside. His scream turned to gurgling as his lungs filled with black liquid. Within minutes, nothing was left of Eric but a pile of clothes on the grass. The slime, now much larger, crawled back to the cemetery, leaving only a faint trail behind. The next day, the police found the abandoned soccer ball and Eric's belongings. The search continued for weeks, but the body was never found. Locals began to talk about the curse of the old cemetery, and parents forbade their children to go near that field. But in the darkness of the night, the black slime continued to grow, waiting for its next victim. And when the moon is full again, it will go hunting, hungry and ruthless. Johnny was always an ordinary guy. 28 years old, he worked as an accountant, lived alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. Nothing special happened in his life until one night everything changed. When Johnny returned home from work, he noticed that something was wrong. He couldn't put his finger on it, but it felt like someone had been in the apartment while he was away. Everything was in its place, but the atmosphere had changed. Chalking it up to fatigue, Johnny decided to take a shower. He went into the bathroom and turned on the light. When he looked in the mirror, he saw his usual reflection. But something was wrong. It was as if the reflection was a moment late in moving. Johnny rubbed his eyes. "I must be really tired," he thought. The next day, everything was normal, but in the evening when Johnny looked in the mirror again, he froze in horror. His reflection was smiling at him, even though Johnny himself did not move a single muscle in his face. "Hello, Johnny," the reflection said. "It's nice to finally meet you in person." Johnny recoiled, but couldn't take his eyes off the mirror. "Who are you? What's going on?" The reflection laughed. "I am you, Johnny, or rather, a better version of you. I exist in every mirror, in every reflection, and I'm tired of being just a shadow." Over the next few days, Johnny tried to avoid mirrors, but it was impossible. His reflection appeared everywhere, in windows, on his phone screen, even in a glass of water, and each time it became stronger, more real. Johnny began to notice changes in himself. He began to forget some moments of his life, as if someone was erasing his memories. Instead, new, strange memories appeared, of places he had never been, of people he had never met. One evening, Johnny realized that he could no longer control his body. He watched his hands move on their own as he said words he didn't mean to say. The reflection in the mirror smiled at him. "Don't worry, Johnny. I'll take care of your life better than you can. You had every opportunity, but you didn't use it. Now it's my turn." Johnny tried to scream, but he couldn't. He felt his consciousness receding, being replaced by something else. The last thing he saw was his own face in the mirror, but with a strange, cold look. Since that day, Johnny has changed. He became more confident and successful. People were surprised by this sudden change, but attributed it to personal growth. No one knew that the real Johnny now existed only as a silent observer in his own body, looking at the world through the mirror of his own eyes, unable to change anything. And his reflection? It had disappeared. Now, when Johnny looked in the mirror, he saw only his usual reflection. But sometimes, when no one was looking, he would wink at himself, and the same cold, alien smile would appear on his face.